Hello, today we're going to talk about why the ultra rich get rich by Brian Kloss and Big Think.
One of the great myths that our society perpetuates is that if anyone is super rich, they must be a super genius. And this is not true. And there's a few reasons why this is not true that when you start to peer in the dynamics of the correlation between wealth and talent, the whole idea breaks down and luck plays a much bigger role than we are told.
I've been thinking about this a lot. You would think that people who are very rich would be geniuses, but obviously it's not the case. And I don't know why that is, but I'm sure this guy does. Let's hear him out.
So, the first thing to understand is that some human traits are normally distributed, they have a bell curve to them, and some are not normally distributed. So, for example, if you think about height, height is going to be clustered around a relatively narrow band. You're not going to find a human that's 1 foot tall, and you're not going to find a human that's 200 feet tall, right? And as a result of this, you have a sort of normal distribution around a relative average.
And intelligence is based on this bell curve too. The average being 100.
But wealth is not like this. Wealth is distributed on what has a long tail. It has this really long distribution at the top, and then a lot of people clustered towards the bottoms.
Hey, wait, but intelligence is on that bell curve. These two charts really don't match up. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
So there's a large number of people who have sort of average incomes, and then a few people who might be 100 or 1,000 or even 1,000,000 times richer than somebody else on the planet.
That doesn't make a lot of sense. Shouldn't wealth be distributed a different way?
And this creates a mismatch because in order to produce that long tail, you need to have some serious luck. Now, my favorite study that shows this was a collaboration between some physicists and an economist. And they developed what is basically a sort of fake world with some crude relationships between wealth and talent. Talent is normally distributed. You have people who are clustered around a sort of normal area, the average of human society.
Talent is on a bell curve, normally distributed. That makes sense.
And then you have a small number of people who are really talented and a small number of people who are really not so talented. But nobody in the world is like 1,000,000,000 times more talented than somebody else.
But there are people that have billions of dollars, while some people are living on the streets. That seems kind of weird, doesn't it?
And what this means is that when luck is introduced into the equation, when you have these sort of lightning strikes that we can think of with luck, they're going to hit in the place that has the most people. Because if you imagine a sort of bell curve where most people are in the talent spectrum, the idea that the lightning is going to strike the one person who's the most talented in the world or the one person who's the least talented in the world, it's just highly improbable. So instead, what's going to happen is the lightning is going to hit someone around the middle value of talent. Now, when that happens, it's going to increase the chance that they become wealthy. If they get struck by lightning twice, the odds of them becoming extremely wealthy increase, right? So, what ends up happening in these simulations they run is that over and over, the richest person in their fake world is not somebody of extreme talent. It's somebody who's marginally above average on talent who happens to get lucky. And I think this is the way the world works. I think we have a lot of complex dynamics that are producing these outcomes, not to mention, by the way, all the things we can't control, like whether you were born rich, which is highly correlated with being rich in the future, and also whether you had a network that supported you through connections and so on.
Seems like besides being born rich or born into a network of high value, it's really just a game of chance on who has wealth and who can achieve it.
And a lot of people who are super rich, pretend that they have earned everything, that they deserve their wealth, and that they obviously are the most talented person.
I mean, when there's so many people struggling and living on the street, why would you not fake that you weren't lucky, that you got everything from hard work? Seems a little bit backwards to me. There is actually a social experiment recently where a millionaire was like, I'm going to give up everything and be homeless and try to work my way to $1,000,000. He ended up after a year quitting because of mental health issues, and he was taking high risk investments as well, which the normal person who doesn't have that safety net to fall back on would probably be more risk averse compared to this guy. So it really shows you that it's a mental health crisis out here because people are struggling.
And I think this is just something that is fundamentally a myth. It's not possible to become extremely wealthy if you have zero talent, but as long as you have some and you get lucky, you're more likely to end up on those long tails of the high degree of wealth. And I think this is something that our our modern world infers backwards that genius is something that always is attached to the people who are wealthy. And sometimes they were just the random byproduct of lightning hitting them rather than somebody else.
One of the guys with the highest IQ is just a bouncer at a bar. You would think in a just society that the smartest people would have more money, but it seems in reality that they don't.
Elon Musk is one of these great examples, I think, of someone who has some level of talent, but perhaps not as much as everybody pretends. And what happens with Elon Musk is, I think he got lucky. I think he got super rich. And as a result of that, he inferred that therefore he must be a genius. And therefore that his skills are transferable into everything else that he could possibly throw himself into, which has turned out to not be the case. So you look at some of the areas where he has had financial success, and then you assume, well, the reason for the success is because you're a genius. And geniuses, of course, all believe that they can control their own future and that their talent will see them through no matter what realm they enter.
It seems like a lot of these people just use other people who are really smart to bolster up themselves. Nobody becomes a billionaire just off their own work. They use smart people and the average person to step onto the platform of billionaire. So, ethical billionaires, is that a real thing? I'm not sure. You tell me.
Now, Elon Musk has had some success with cars and with rocket ships and so on, and some of that is due probably to his talent, but some of it is also due to the talent of the people who work for him, the scientists who run the breakthroughs, the funding mechanisms that allow him to get government grants and so on. And when he's been on his own, which is to say, when he's acquired Twitter, for example, he basically lit tens of billions of dollars on fire and made that social media site worth a fraction of what it was before because his so-called genius wasn't transferable to the realm of social media.
Twitter is an important purchase, but when he couldn't rely on other people and had to stand on his own 2 feet, it looks like he just burnt a bunch of money. I see the argument on both sides for social media censorship. And social media is great bringing us together, but at the same time, it's also spurring mental health and addictions that are not necessarily helpful, like the dopamine addiction to making negative comments or receiving replies or likes go up. Happiness doesn't come from numbers, and I don't think happiness can be found outside of yourself either. These social media platforms can spur happiness, but maybe it's just an artificial happiness of a dopamine release in your brain that these algorithms are trained to give you more and more and more of. Life online is only spurring the epidemic of loneliness. And the sinister thing is, people profit off of you being online.
And I think it's one of the huge problems of societies. Actually, there's a lot of things about billionaires that are not due to luck or to talent, they're due to their greed. So, one of the things that I think about with this as well is there is a degree of overconfidence,
America, land of the greed and home of the slaves.
thirst for money that you have to have in order to become a billionaire. So, with the thirst for money, for example, if somebody gave me $2 billion, the first thing that I would not do is say, oh my God, how can I get $3 billion? I would give away most of my money.
It's exactly like social media. Numbers go up and likes and views, numbers go up in my bank account. Seems like a backwards thing to focus on.
People who are billionaires, they look at the 2 billion and they say, how can I have 3? And then they get 3 billion and they say, how can I have 4? So what's happened is you have a self-selection of certain traits that make it more likely that these people will become super, super rich after they have gotten lucky because they are greedy.
These people are just on a hedonic treadmill. They get to a certain amount and they think it's going to be enough, and it's not because they're looking for something outside themselves. They're looking to increase this metric that does nothing for nobody besides their ego.
And so, I think there is a lot of the mythology around billionaires and a lot of the mythology around people like Elon Musk infers backwards this straight line between talent and wealth. And there's so much more going on there. And I think the immediate assumption that the genius must be embedded in the person who is financially successful in one industry is a great misunderstanding of how our world works and the sort of arbitrary nature and sometimes the unfairness with which talent and wealth are not strictly correlated.
Wealth doesn't equal genius. Correlating things with metrics that don't add up seems to be the fault in our mindset that we need to fix. If you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe to the cult. Become a cult member. And remember, we are trying to flip the script on cults because culture is something that we're all a part of. So, no abuse, no manipulation. Believe in what you want. Community focused, different perspectives welcome. Help one another. Strong goals for the individual. And the golden rule: do unto others as you would want done unto yourself. See you next time.